Hey everybody, what's up? KillJoy Jake here, and instead of having friends, I have horror movies. I'm gonna be completely Emily Blunt with you here. If you have not seen A Quiet Place 2, I would recommend seeing that before watching this video because I'm about to spoil it. Today we are pitting A Quiet Place from 2018 versus its sequel that just came out, A Quiet Place Part 2. Now before I do that, I'm gonna need y'all to like this video and subscribe for more horror content. Also, please consider supporting me on Patreon. It helps me make more videos like this. You can check that out by clicking on the link in the description below. Alrighty, now let's get into it.
Get over here!
Now before we go beyond the scene, let's talk a little bit about these movies. A Quiet Place is a 2018 American horror film directed by John Krasinski and written by Brian Woods, Scott Beck, and Krasinski. The plot revolves around a father, played by Krasinski, and a mother, Emily Blunt, who struggle to survive and raise their children, Millicent Simmons and Noah Jupe, in a post-apocalyptic world inhabited by blind monsters with an acute sense of hearing. Some fun facts about this film: John Krasinski and Emily Blunt in real life are husband and wife, which makes this film all the more believable that they are like a cohesive family. And Millicent Simmons in real life is deaf, as well as her character that she portrays in this film. I guess during the filming process she was teaching Blunt and Krasinski like the right ways to sign and like use sign language like the correct way instead of making it like look awkward. I thought that was just a little fun fact I'd throw in there. The original film had a $20 million budget and ending up grossing over $340 million, easily making room for a sequel. A Quiet Place Part 2 is a 2021 American horror film, which once again follows the Abbott family continuing their journey into this post-apocalyptic world. The film was written, produced, and directed by John Krasinski this time around under the studio Paramount Pictures. Emily Blunt, Millicent Simmons, and Noah Jupe reprised their roles in this film alongside new cast member Cillian Murphy. This guy is also in the movie, but I'm not going to try and pronounce his name because I'm just going to butcher it and I don't want to sound like an idiot. But he was fantastic as well. Now before we get into the good, I just want to be a little humble here for a second and say that I might have predicted something that happened in this movie. I don't know, let's roll that clip back from a couple of days ago. In the cast list, there's also a character that's just named Man on the Island, who I'm very interested to see like where that goes. Are we going like, is this movie gonna wrap up on an island somewhere? Because that's gonna be really interesting. Oh yeah, I filmed that a couple days before I saw A Quiet Place 2, and I was right! Let's go! Okay, I gotta chill out. Alright, let's chill the fuck out and get into the good. Starting off with A Quiet Place from 2018, this film has the ability to show so much emotion through sign language. My first thing when I was going into this movie was I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna like it because most of this movie like doesn't have any dialogue. It's mostly sign language except for like, I believe there's only 6 pages of script that has dialogue on it. I went into this movie in 2018 thinking I was not going to like it at all, and I was completely blown away. This is a next level movie, and they're able to show so much emotion through just sign language, where some movies can't even do that with actual dialogue. So this movie gets a massive plus for that. Insanely suspenseful. You are truly on the edge of your seat until the credits roll in this movie, like literally until the very last frame. There is never a dull moment. It does not feel like it's 90 minutes whatsoever. I can't believe Krasinski was on The Office for so long and didn't share us his horror talents for all this time. I mean, what the hell, man? I do have to give props to Brian Woods and Scott Beck though, who are unfortunately kind of shadowed by John Krasinski because like he's John Krasinski, everyone knows him, he's freaking huge, he was on The Office, but these guys actually did come up with the idea for this movie. Krasinski came on board later on and was like, oh yeah, I love this idea, let's do this. Like, can I star in it? Oh, sure, yeah. Can I direct it too? They're like, oh, you want to direct it? Alright, let's go for it. There are these absolutely terrifying sequences throughout this movie that have absolutely like no dialogue, barely any sound besides the music. It's brilliantly done. There's not another movie besides the sequel that I can think of that does this so well without having any dialogue or really any sound. Which kind of leads me into my next positive here. The characters are written and performed so well. Of course the writing was done very well in this film, but also the actors who performed in this movie were just fantastic. I mean, literally everybody across the board was great. John Krasinski, Emily Blunt, Millicent Simmons, Noah Jupe. Everybody gets a perfect amount of screen time, and there's not one character that doesn't have some kind of like arc or like issue that they're struggling with. Every single person in this movie has some kind of like thing that they're dealing with and they have to overcome. I think it was written and performed very well by everybody. Monsters and sound design. Although the monsters in this movie do kind of have a similar look to the Demogorgon in Stranger Things, I will say though the sound design for the monsters is like actually really creepy. It sounds almost like a bad bat mixed with like Jurassic Park velociraptors, if that makes any sense. And even though the monster design isn't like the most original I've ever seen, because of the sound design, I feel like that makes up for it. And of course, I've already praised the writing and directing of this film, so like I'm not gonna make that a plus. I kind of talked about that on the side here and there. Gotta say, this is just one of those flawless horror films that came out in the past 10 years, and man, is it going to be hard to top, let me tell you. Moving into the good from A Quiet Place Part 2, Millicent Simmons steps up. Not to say that she wasn't good in the first movie, but she really kind of takes the lead role in this new film. And man, does she kill it. I mean, she was, like I said, she's great in the first movie, but God, I mean, she just gives off standout performance in this movie. Stole the show by far. And once again, I have to commend her for showing so much emotion in this movie through sign language. To most of the audience who doesn't speak sign language or only speaks like just English like me, it's one of those things where once again I was going into this film thinking like, I don't know if they're going to be able to do it again, like with how much emotion was shown in that first film. Are they going to be able to do it again? They top it. I mean, they do it like even better in the second movie. Cillian Murphy and Djimon Hounsou are great additions to the cast. After a quick Google search, I think I figured out how to pronounce his name. Hopefully that's right. I was really worried going into this movie because I was thinking like, hey, we're adding like 2 new characters to the mix here that are main characters. We don't have John Krasinski anymore except for that flashback at the beginning, of course. Are they going to be as good? And I would say, yeah, they are. They kick ass. Although we don't spend too much time with Djimon Hounsou's character because, well, he dies. He does give a great performance, and Cillian Murphy knocks it out of the park as well, giving us this great emotional performance, like kind of talking about his dead son and wife, of course, which is really upsetting, and that shows through this movie and his performance. Great callbacks. I don't exactly know what to call this except for a callback. When a movie introduces something at the beginning that doesn't seem like it's so important or relevant at the time and then comes back sometime at the end, this film has a great callback, where in the flashback we see at the beginning of the movie, Cillian Murphy's character asks like, how does sign dive? Like he doesn't know how to do that, so he asks Millicent Simmons' character and she shows him like, it's this. Later on in the movie, he then tells Millicent Simmons' character to dive into the water because he's going to kill those raiders that attacked them. That was so brilliantly done. It took me a second because I was like, oh, wait a minute, that's the thing. That's the thing right there. This is such a quiet movie too, like in the theaters. If you get really excited about something, everyone around you is going to hear it. Thankfully, the first time I saw this movie in the theaters, I was only accompanied by an old couple in the back that really didn't care too much. I think they actually liked my excitement, probably. World building. A Quiet Place 2 does an absolutely spectacular job at world building. I recently praised Christopher Landon for being an excellent world builder in his sequels. For example, Happy Death Day to You does a really good job at like kind of expanding that world, where I feel like that movie didn't really need a sequel. That second film actually has a reason to exist because it builds onto that world. It even kind of sets up a Happy Death Day 3 that I'm sure will happen at some point. John Krasinski does that spectacularly in this film by setting up like this whole world of like refugees that have been alive throughout all this time. We learn a little more about the monsters as well, the thing that they can't swim, and that like all these people are living on this island, like everything's just kind of back to normal. Personally, I think that's brilliant. I think if we just had another movie where it was like the family surviving and just trying to live and getting attacked by raiders, I would not be interested in that at all. This is the way to do a sequel. And once again leaves you off with a huge cliffhanger. Of course, the ending to the first A Quiet Place was a huge cliffhanger, but then the ending to this one as well, there's so much that hasn't been finished yet. There's so many things that have been set up that have yet to been resolved. We need A Quiet Place 3, which that's going to be my next video. Both of these films do an excellent job at that. Of course, I think probably the cliffhanger at the end of one is a little better, but I will say that there is some stuff at the end of the second film that gets unresolved. Like, of course, Emily Blunt's character and Noah Jupe's character have not made it to the island yet, so like the next film is probably going to be about bringing them over there. Like I just said though, I'm going to post an entire video talking about theories about that and my theory about how John Krasinski's character is still alive. You'll be seeing that sometime this week. Now, although I love these movies, we do have to move into the bad. The only thing bad I can think to have for the first A Quiet Place is the fact that we really don't see too many kills. Besides the death of Bo and Lee, like we only see like a raccoon get like splattered into blood, which is cool, but like there's really no other like crazy kills in this movie. Both of those kills that I just talked about were mostly done off screen as well. We don't really actually get to see any like heads get cut off. We don't see any like blood or anything crazy. The second film does a whole lot more of that, which I think is a big improvement over this first film. Although I would argue that like kills aren't exactly the big like thing that scares you about this movie. It's more like the sound. It's more sound. It's like the fact that you can't make any sound. That's terrifying. You have to completely change the way you live. That's a lot more of a psychologically scarier concept to me than like just like a bunch of people like getting murdered in front of you. Something that I feel like most people have been desensitized to, especially people who have been around like since the the 80s. The bad for A Quiet Place 2 is that there are some plot inconsistencies. One of the biggest things I noticed going back and watching the first film after watching the second film was that at the very beginning of the first movie, you see a whole bunch of things indicating like that they knew about the monsters like maybe like a couple of months beforehand, and then maybe they like kind of overtook the earth. Two of the things I'm talking about here is there's a bunch of like missing people's posters all around town, like because like they're getting murdered because like these monsters like just are picking them off one by one. And there's also like a newspaper, like I believe it's a New York Post, saying like, oh, it's sound, like we have to be quiet or we're all gonna die. In the second film, in that flashback specifically, it kind of made it seem like the monsters just kind of like came down on a meteor and like it instantly attacked, and like that was it. There wouldn't have been any time for like newspapers to have been printed and been delivered. Like that's a huge plot inconsistency. Another thing that was really actually disappointing about the second film is that at the very end of the first A Quiet Place, we see a whole bunch of the monsters running towards the house that Emily Blunt and her children are in, and we never get to see that resolved. That was like the huge cliffhanger at the end of the last film. We never get to see it resolved. They just kind of walk out of the house and they're fine. Like what? I was expecting like a big battle at the beginning of this movie and nothing. So they changed up a bunch of stuff for this second movie that I feel like they didn't have to do, but I feel like it's redeemed because of how good that second film was. So am I giving out the ugly award? Heck no! Oh my god, no. Both of these movies are 10 out of 10s, but which one will be the victor? Honestly, I think I have to give it to the second film. Look, the first movie, great concept, and it's a brilliant little horror film. But the second film is everything that was great about that first movie on top of like being a world-building, brilliant post-apocalyptic masterpiece. I feel like this is an Alien and Aliens situation where both of them are fantastic, but like some people love this one and some people love this one. They are very different films, even though they have like a whole bunch of similarities. I just think I like the second one a little more because it progresses the story so much more than the first one. But with that being said, I would say because you don't know so much about the world, that makes the first movie a lot scarier than the second film. So it's totally arguable. It's just my opinion that I think I like the second one a little more. What do you guys think is the better film here though? I mean, personally, I think they're like neck and neck right at each other's throats, but like, what do you think? Leave me something about it in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching my A Quiet Place versus A Quiet Place 2 versus video. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more horror content. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Just look up KillJoy Jake and I'll come up. Please consider supporting me on Patreon to see more videos like this. You can check that out by clicking on the link in the description below. Thank you all again for watching, and as always, don't forget to kill it out there, y'all.